Hello. Finally, one more week has passed, and now we will talk about the new episode 7 of Season 7 of Rick and Morty. As we saw, the season at the beginning started a little weak, but the second half is very respectable. Now we will talk about this episode 7 titled W What A Can Add, or as they titled it in Spanish in NCAT search. Although a very reverent title, we can already deduce that this chapter will be starring Morty, and add will be that once again we will have the theme of the incestuous homunculus back. Well, we are going to discover that now. Before starting, make sure be subscribed so you don't miss out. You're welcome. Everything starts with cleaning Rick's ship, which is bathed in alien viscera. Then while organizing the amulets he has without believing, he activates a cursed amulet, thus awakening an evil entity. But he reacts quickly and he manages to exorcise him by reading the conjuring of a book of spells. His day continues to function as a butcher shop as we see that he dismembers the body of an alien after entering the memory room and cleaning up the broken glass. Once this is done, he meets with Rick to demand payment for organize her trash, making it clear that she wants something that improves her attributes because she has a party that night. So Rick gives her a biotechnology amulet embedded in her bone marrow with which he changes her secondary characters, such as giving her more strength and making her taller when she arrives. Morty arrives and notices that his sister is now more of a man than him. He asks Rick for an attribute regulator of his own, reminding the old man that he helped him kill his nemesis. However, the old man does not want to talk about it, so he disappears in a bomb. Smoke Morty asks Summer for mercy so that she doesn't lend him the regulator, reminding her that as the older sister she must protect him, but Samar sends him to the party, and when he pushes him against Rick's things, they discover that he is hidden in a garbage bag. And we see Morty jealously watching his sister, who now has everyone's attention thanks to her improved abilities, and when the captain of the school team named Brad sees this, he asks Summer to join his group for this. Summer changes her attributes by redirecting her strength and charisma. In this way, with a few words, she seduces Brad's friend by praising his hair in order to get his phone number. Morty can't stand it, so he reveals to them that Summer is only using technology to adapt to social situations. However, the popular ones, they don't give it any importance, but just in case, Summer orders Morty to leave so as not to continue embarrassing him. He promises that he will leave if he allows him to be muscular so he can show his pectorals to the girl he likes called Tra, and who turns out to be curiously the Samar's best friend, obviously a sister. He does not accept it and begins to drag him towards the exit. But in the middle of this, while struggling, Morty manages to change his sister's attributes, which causes her to redirect her charisma and strength into just intelligence, thus obtaining the regulator. And while her sister suffers on the floor with a hypertrophied brain, Morty changes all his attributes by force. However, at that moment, Summer uses her advanced intellect, calculating the probabilities of an attack against her brother because she immediately throws a frisbee at him that indirectly triggers a domino effect among the things that surround him, until Mortis trips over a skateboard to keep it within reach. The battle between these two begins, and we see that the struggle ends up causing them to dive into the pool where, due to the water, the regulator suffers a short circuit, and when they leave it, those present observe that Summer now has Morty fused as a homunculus called Quad in her belly, and that she only mentions the phrase "open your mind" as a being that completely lacks gray matter. Sumar tries to solve it with the regulator, but it does not work, so now his desperation causes she is booed by the entire party, so she leaves crying until Rick analyzes her. Grandpa discovers that the genetic sequencer made Morty and Summer's spinal cords join together in the middle of tears. She implores him to solve it, but Rick demands that he pay. Therefore, without options, Summer proceeds to carry out her tasks by feeding the creatures in her laboratory with dead rats. In the middle of this, when checking her networks, she observes that although at the beginning she was the featured girl at the party, she ended up being the phenomenon of the night. However, in that moment, she receives advertising for a party with people with a quad or muscle like her, and since she is tired of cleaning, she decides to leave everything to attend that party. Once there, seeing that they receive her with praise, she decides to stay, and thus meets a handsome man with a quad attractive enough for Morty named Godiva. He explains to her that in that place the quads belong to the VIP class, and since Summer likes the idea, he takes her to the area only for quads, where he introduces Jesus to the Messiah of the quads and who pays for everything. They're called Kenneth, so Summer enters the party drinking and consuming space gases that make her fly further beyond her imagination while she dances without any shame. When this ends, Quad invites her to his apartment, and since Summer is, he happily accepts. However, when Summer makes it clear to him that tonight she wants a lot of action, but he apologizes because Summer is immediately kidnapped. When she wakes up, she does so handcuffed in a machine that transfers her to an oven, and she also discovers that Morty was extracted from her womb. Without options, decides to activate the implant that Rick put in his hair, saying that he does not give him enough credit that Rick deserves, so he manages to free himself from the handcuffs and avoids turning into coal. And when the crematorium manager arrives with a new body, he leaves him unconscious and throws him baked without mercy. And although at that moment the girl who comes after her wakes up, Summer makes it clear that she cannot help her well. She must find Morty at the same time. While this was happening, of course, Rick's snoring makes Bet try to close his mouth with some tweezers, but this activates Rick's self-defense implants. Once he wakes up, Rick explains to him that Summer and Morty are fused, but they are safe because Summer is cleaning up her trash. However, when she checks all the places in her laboratory, she realizes that there is no one there, and when reviewing the videotapes, he discovers where Sumar went and returns to the party, where he subdues Quiet, and with a few blows to his beautiful face he gets him to reveal that Mort was taken to an auction. Clandestine Summer orders him to take him with him, and although Quiet refuses, warning him that if he does they will kill him by receiving another blow to his face, he decides to collaborate. Meanwhile, of course, we are going to go with Morty, who is in the middle of an improvised clinic run by a punk quack who keeps him alive and who responds to the name Kenneth. Seeing him there, Morty asks him why he does it. Then Kenneth explains that he simply wants to be rich because being a quad people will pay enough for Morty to be implanted in their bodies. Following the trail of the license plate in the video, Rick reaches the owner of the taxi, whom he tortures to get the information, so he manages to reach the bar, and his investigation continues by hitting the bartender as this relentless method works, and we see that he manages to locate the two kidnappers whom he also tortures for information. But then Summer appears before him with Quiet as Reen. Here, when Rick asks him about Morty, he discovers that Summer did not bother to activate the psychic link that the quads and their people can establish. Without options, Summer decides to try, and by opening her mind he enters an empty space where he manages to see Morty and understand all his words. While we see that Morty's auction has begun, when he arrives at Kenneth's base and he understands that Quiet betrayed them, he orders his men to kill him because we see that they use their psychic powers to make him explode. At this, Rick counterattacks, swearing to be such a psychotic that he manages to scare away Kenneth's men. But once alone, he reveals that they are only pretending with an implant, which was seen by Kenneth from the cameras. When following the Morty's voice, they pass through the auction room where the doctor receives her, attacking him. Sumar knocks them down without problems, and then he does the same with the presenter. They continue advancing, and on the way they find other quads that they prefer to ignore because at that moment more men of Kenneth. Just when Sumar discovers that Morty is being taken to a ship thanks to Rick and his inflatable, but they escape the bullets of the gangsters above, but end up falling right in the middle of the gangsters protecting the ship. The battle begins, and while they murder their enemies, Summer makes it clear that none of this would have happened if Rick had separated them when he asked, and that unlike her, Morty always receives everything for free. So Rick explains to her that in Morty's case it is like that because he considers him like a dog. But she sees her as a cat whom she respects more because she reminds her of her grandmother, Bet's mother. In the middle of this, Summer is captured, but she solves it by activating the secret attack of her hair, which dives into the gangster's intestines until she snatches his life. Meanwhile, Morty is taken to another makeshift clinic on the ship where the quack plans to prepare him for his buyer, but Morty exists by biting the sedative. Done this, while Morty crawls towards freedom, Ricky Summer they corner Kenneth, who decides to fight back by freeing the quat from his body. Well, immediately Kenneth quat makes a mini quat emerge from his belly, who turns out to be the bearer of Kenneth's identity. Well, the mini quat reveals to them that all this time he was disguised in the quad in the humanoid body. His speech is interrupted when Morty launches himself against him, starting the battle between Quats, and Morty's anger makes him decide to rip off his ear as his first attack. And before this, Kenneth takes out his knife with a sharp quad in it, being at a disadvantage. MTY tries to take over Kenneth's robot, but it is immediately he regains control, and after crashing everyone against the walls as he considers that everyone there will die, he decides to reveal that in reality Mini Quat was being controlled by another Quat. But then Rick gets tired of quiet, so he decides to intervene by taking control of his robot so he submerges it in the water. However, Morty mentioned that he would have liked to control Quiet's robot. So Rick reverses and brings it back with Quiet's dead body in it. However, by making it shake to try to make it, the quad falls down. We see that Quiet wakes up, and although he asks for mercy, warning that he has many more revelations to make, Rick undoes it anyway. Once Morty aborts the robot, he likes what he sees in it so much that he decides to stay on it as a quad. So playing with Brad and the popular kids, his brother's fame makes one of them propose to Summer to be his Tuesday girlfriend. But he is rejected, and Summer immediately leaves with the girl he rescued in the oven, leaving Morty alone with the disaster he caused with the robot's missiles. Before finishing, we see who would have been the buyer of Morty's quad waiting for Kenneth to arrive with his purchase and warning that he has decided to call Morty as 69 because he likes that name better, thus ending with the Rick